I'm Evan Todd, and I'm the co-founder of artsINSIDEOUT along with Dick Scanlon. And it started with a dinner. Dick and I started having dinners when I was a second year in college.
We started in October of 10, meeting and figuring out, okay, how do we do this? Like, how do we figure out the kind of program we want to do? How do we fundraise it? How do we find other team members? How do we find a partner organization? Nkosi's Haven is a home for mothers with HIV/AIDS and their children, for other children with HIV/AIDS, for other children orphaned or abandoned because of HIV/AIDS.
Like, why? I think the question, why are you going, is really important. If you don't know why, then you have to really reevaluate what you're doing there.
On a certain level, I feel so connected to a certain experience they've had, and that is very inspiring for me. And I think it feels like as I get to know them better and they avail themselves of me as a resource in that regard, as a mentor, not just creatively, but as a person with AIDS, I think it's empowering for them too.
I don't have to just hand out food or become a doctor and fly down and do surgery or learn how to build a well, but that, like, as artists we have really important skill sets that aren't just for entertainment value, that aren't just to sell tickets, but that the training itself was so important as our development as a person, that we actually have that gift to give to people.
That thing from A-Step about, we're not here to teach them, like, we're here to experience our skill set with them so that they can come to themselves and realize that they are individuals who are worthy. And I think it also ties into what Gail wants. You are worthy to go get what you want. It doesn't matter how far it is. It doesn't matter what it is. If you believe it and there's a community that supports you, you can go get it.
Especially because we're working with more South African artists this time, that maybe the theme allows the kids to sing, dance, explore in a cross-cultural way, but more of their actual identities than learning a Western song that we've taught them.
So I'm part curator. I'm going to be the director for the final show. So I'll be kind of gathering and focusing, but it's a collective experience, so I don't see it in the directorial sort of top-down, hands-on way, but more in the how do we focus and gather and point towards a final performance.
Because we've built a more South African ensemble this year,
Right.
If we find a word that's evocative to our ensemble of teachers,
Yeah.
we'll successfully do that.
I expect, honestly, it'll be more successful this year than it was last.
It's like there's an opportunity to say to these kids, we're not here to make you happy, we don't even know what that means, but we're here to help you understand that whatever experiences you've had, you can gather them and contextualize them and express them, and in doing so, not only will you'll come to some sort of, if not healing, there's a kind of grace and peace available to you, and at the same time you're affording it to the people who are listening to it, you know? So it's not about saying it's all okay, that the things that have happened. It's not about saying what's going to happen is great, but it's giving you a way to work with whatever's happened and what's ever going to happen so that you can be present in your life in a healthy way. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
In 3 weeks, I think it's about planting that seed and seeing that little spark, which we may not even see. That's that moment of, I'm going to confront myself and do something that scares me, whether or not it's writing or painting or telling a story or being an improviser. I'm going to confront that moment, and I'm going to have the courage to then step away from it, look at it objectively, chisel away at it, shape it, destroy it, change, until I come to something that I can then present. I mean, isn't that something that every person needs to be able to do? If you're a lawyer or a doctor, or that's what creative thinking is. That's what problem solving is.
But my job is, it's interesting because I'm not like a teacher, so to speak. I try and avoid teacher status with the boys that come down to me. I say boys because they are usually boys. As Dick described it earlier, we give them all beautiful journals that we've handmade with photographs of them, and some of them want to set that on fire and throw it out of the window, and that's fine. And that's pretty accurate.
You know, we've just started this preliminary process, and there's been a lot of, you know, really beautiful sort of philosophical preparatory work, and, you know, a lot of discussion on these very, I won't say esoteric levels, but they're framing conversations.
Yeah, their take on our culture is an interesting thing, and we might see reflected in that something about our culture that we hadn't thought of before. Whereas me bringing what in America, what our idea of what drum circle is to Africa is absurd, but on the other hand, maybe there's something about that. Oh, through your eyes, I can see reflected back, you know, something about it that I hadn't thought of before.
Yeah.
And so something about like the images. When I came across one of the words, I just wrote shoes, and, you know, like if you were in the other person's shoes.
Just to add to that, the shoes that these kids have, most of the shoes are all hand-me-downs. Like in the boys' cottage is a huge box of shoes, and they just grab whatever pair they think fits, right? And their feet are growing, and you a lot of time the shoes you'll see have hole. You know what I mean? Or like I'll look and I go, those shoes are too small for. I can see your toe. You know what I mean? You need to go back to the box and find a pair of shoes. Your feet are growing, you know? So shoes are also loaded here, because it isn't like when they want shoes, they take Gail's credit card and go to the mall and get shoes.
I expect there'll be some huge cultural differences, and perhaps particularly within the way the facilitators work. But I do expect to kind of fall in love with some of the kids and be really blown away by them.
I expect that we will encounter problems because of our preconceived curriculums that we're approaching the whole system with. Because we're not working with trained performers. So it's a challenging thing to come in and make a curriculum not knowing also what the children are, who the children are, and what their skill set is. So it's going to be challenging, but it'll be fun.
On Monday morning, when I walk in that situation with those kids, what exactly am I going to be teaching them? And I have, you know, years of, you know, I have conservatory training, and I have musical theater training, and I've worked on Broadway, and I've worked all over the world in theater, and I'm going to teach music to kids in Africa. And what does all of my knowledge really mean to them? How is it applicable to them? And I honestly, you know, I really at this point on whatever day this is, because it's, you know, jet lag, on Thursday night, you know, I honestly cannot tell you on Monday morning. I mean, I have ideas about what it is, but I really can't tell you on Monday morning what I'm going to stand in front of those kids and say, and that is terrifying.
Like, there's something that's happening right now, specifically in this area, and it necessitates us trying to facilitate a dialogue, a conversation, arts empowerment. We're not creating an experience that no one else can bring you. We're merely giving you tools that exist in the world, or a training that exists that you can get in South Africa that frees you up as a person.
The most discouraging thing is to contemplate the futures that are ahead for these kids, just based on where South Africa is right now, the extraordinary unemployment rate, especially amongst, you know, it's so ridiculous to say Black South Africans, that's 85% of the population. So it's absurd to sort of carve it out, you know, because it's the vast majority, but the unemployment rate among young Black South Africans is staggeringly high.
I would really like to see how it's sustainable from a South African point. So whether that means that this project continues, or whether it's incorporated into something I do on a personal capacity, or whether it is through the organization I work through, but seeing sort of a longevity of the work, and particularly for the kids, so actually perhaps getting them to see theatre, or bringing theatre to them, or saying that there are other things you can do in the area which could help you sustain this if this is something you're really interested in.